Hello, welcome to Vlogmas, day 16. If you hear some scurrying around, I have Poppy's robot on, which he absolutely, listen to him, he absolutely loves it, and he chases it all over the place, and destroyed this. But it's one of the few days it's actually so as predicted, yesterday was a winner. Nobody wanted to hear about it. So, I think I'll keep the party going with, another kind of one to put together. By the way, puzzles are not supposed to be like, they're supposed to be separated. My topic today is going to be another rough one. It is how to set boundaries in your life without disappearing. And what I mean by that is it basically, usually people with avoidant personality disorder have sort of two modes, which is stick with it no matter what, or eventually it gets so bad they just bolt and they're disappeared, they're gone. Most people have enough of a issue with self-esteem that they would not, sometimes not even consider that they could sort of change things in their existence. That, as my mother would say, make your bed and lie in it, and you take what you're given, because who says that you're due anymore? That's legitimately what she would say all the time. I keep thinking it wants to go that way, but I must have the camera on a weird angle. Anyway, so yeah, how do you basically set a boundary and not instead bolt? Can't be done. Okay, done. Video's over. Aren't I funny? It can be done. It's hard. It's really hard. It's against every single bit of your nature. This idea that you're going to say this is acceptable and this is not, and this is what I need to make this go forward. Well, first of all, how I just said that is the complete wrong way of doing it. That's the issue. The issue is that it's not black and white, and that there are degrees, and that you can see, this is like, it breaks my brain to even talk about it, because I'm like, no, what I'm saying is not right. No, except it is. You don't have to think in terms of black and white when it comes to making sort of relationship adjustments. The thing is that it's not so much that it's easier. That could be correct. Ooh. Maybe not. Anyway, God, this one's weird. It's because there are people in it. I can't do a puzzle with people. You're not supposed to people. And I think that one goes like that. It looks weird to me, but anyway, the first thing is to pay attention and acknowledge that there's an issue. You would think that's easy. That's like the hardest thing to do. Um, this all goes in one puzzle? What? Um, it is, without a doubt, as far as I'm concerned, the most difficult thing to do is to look at what's going on in your life and acknowledge that there's um, something that is maybe incorrect and you can't really deal with it. The problem with that is the way that people with avoidant personality disorder have been brought up through their abuse, in most cases, not all, but most, um, is that they're basically told this is how it is, period. And they either have continuing abuse or something to that effect that um, makes everything continue for them in this incredibly negative way. And so basically what I'm saying is that you can't do anything to change it, is what you've been brought up to know and think. I mean, that's not true, especially once you become an adult. As a child, yeah, probably whatever was going on, there was nothing you could do about it. Nobody was ever going to change. Nobody was ever going to be on your side. This is a fact. But just because this is how you've been modeled and this is what you grew up thinking and believing, that's not how everybody thinks and believes. And so there are people who will think and believe differently from that. And there are people who might, be way more flexible than whatever you grew up with. And that's the first hardest thing to wrap your head around, because it's like, no, that's wrong. And that's not how this world works. Except it does a little bit. So if you have that type of situation that you've been existing with, then, and I said this puzzle was not going to come together, and look at that. Then, it won't even dawn on you that there could be something different. That's like not something that's even feasible, that things could be different from how you grew up or how you were groomed. I mean, that's a harsh word, but basically that's it. You were groomed to behave in a certain way and to expect certain things. And then you go out in the real world and that's not how it is a lot of the time. And it's just that alone is very hard to do. So to stop and think, okay, what do I need and what do I want, is like completely just not the way you were taught to look at the universe, because it's all about whoever else is in your life and what they need and what they want only. So there's issue number one, is how exactly do you sort of come up with what you need and want in your life? You might, I mean, seriously, I mean, it sounds bizarre, but you might not even have any way of realizing that there's something wrong. And now, of course, how people operate when they have avoidant personality disorder is they basically tough it out until they can't tolerate it at all anymore. And then they bolt. Now, in a lot of situations, I think that it would be advantageous, at least, not straight up, yes, this is what you should do, is to leave situations that are not ideal, because saying this situation is not ideal is such an understatement in so many cases. What the heck? Oh, I guess there's another row. There must be another row. Anyway, so again, that is problem number 1, is acknowledging that there's a problem that you have. And then problem number 2 is, how then do you articulate it? Because you've, probably never had the opportunity, never had anybody who would listen to you, that you think in your head that the reason anybody wants anything to do with you at all is just to like walk all over you because that's your experience. That doesn't mean that it's accurate or correct. It just means that that's how you have always lived. So what an avoidant person usually does, not always, but usually, what they usually do is they just sit and live with it and live with it and live with it until it gets to the boiling point and it's done. And it is a matter of, did I even get any of this on camera? It's a matter of the intense pressure of leaving whatever situation they're in is actually less than the pressure of living in whatever situation they're in. And they hold on forever and ever and ever. Supposedly, for example, one of the lowest divorce rates in the world, not because they're in good marriages necessarily, but because the idea of going through a divorce is so much worse than, and having a new life. But I personally have done it. Let me tell you. I mean, I don't go, I think I'd like to get a new job. I wait until the job is killing to such a point that I just up and leave. I mean, I did this with my son. He was not quite 2 years old. I did not renew my lease. I quit my job and put everybody, packed everything up and moved back to Maine. And I didn't have a place to live. I didn't have a job. I didn't have a car because I lived in Philadelphia where nobody has a car. I had absolutely nothing. And you know what? That was still better than the job that I left, because that is how extreme it got for me. You can seriously blow up your life if you don't allow for these sort of gray areas. So, so, and I'm saying this, and it's I'm sort of hedging because I'm like, this one's difficult because how do I articulate this thing that's impossible and that's so hard even for me to do? I would rather not have relationships with people than have to negotiate a relationship. Period. I would rather use the excuse, somebody might be in a marriage and they're like, oh my goodness, it would be so expensive to get a new house, and I put, got so much equity here, and I would have to pay spousal support and, and everything. It would be such a massive hassle, and my life would be blown up, and, people will get to the point where they're basically suicidal before they would get a divorce, for example. Because they have never, ever, ever stood up for themselves. And actually, I have a friendship that, it is, I don't even know to call, well, first of all, it's weird for me to say that anything is a friendship, first of all. Second of all, I don't even know for sure if it is a friendship because it is so one-sided, because I made the active decision when I first met this person whose life seemed so completely out of control that I was going to be like, okay, whatever. This is going to be some superficial nothing, not going to be an actual friendship thing. I'm going to sit back and let this person basically control the friendship and be 100%, dictating how it goes. And, it's blown up the friendship. For real, because there's like trust issues on my end, because I'm like, okay, well, this person can do whatever and never have consequences, so they do whatever and never have consequences, and then I can't depend on them. So now I'm like, why should I trust this person? And it's not even like, why should I trust this person? It's more like, I can't trust this person. All I can trust is at some point something's going to be done that I had no control over whatsoever, and it's going to make a negative impact on my life. Period. That's the only thing that I can depend on. Absolute 100% depend on. And a really good person, and really awesome, until I get backburnered. And then there we go. And I mean, I will 100%. There's no question about it. I will be backburnered. And the reason for that is that I set the friendship up like that, and then I never, ever, ever wavered from that. And I mean, it was an active decision that I was just like, okay, I know what's going on in your life. You have no control over your life right now. I'm going to let you have this little bit of control. This is what I can do for you as a friend. I can give you something you can have control over in your life. And that was years and years ago. And that standard is set. So this is me being a hypocrite saying, you should do this in your life, and I'm saying, I can't do this in my life. But, and that should word, there we go. Saying my worst word ever, should. So these are all of my ways of, sort of major disclaimer saying this is something that's really, really hard, because there's a lot of stuff with avoidant personality disorder that I worked on and that I'm aware of and that I know what's happening. This is something that is an absolute issue, and it's not just for me, but it's a major issue in my life, and the only person I actually put boundaries down with is my son, but he's my son, and he still pushes back against me all the time. Although we will articulate it. We'll come right out and say. He's pretty harsh about it. He can't be subtle. But he will say, he doesn't say, my life is chaotic right now and I need a break from you, Mom, which would be a nice way of putting it. He'll say, Mom, I'm trying to go no contact with you. I'm like, oh my God. And then he'll call me back 2 days later because he just needs a break and he just doesn't have a way of articulating it. And probably because he grew up with me with absolutely no, modeling of any sort whatsoever on how to do it. So how do you do it? Again, first, you acknowledge there's a problem and you don't just put it under the rug. You say there is a problem and this is what it is. Second, you put it into perspective, because the thing is that it will become eventually such a humongous problem that you're not going to be able to live with it anymore, and it will blow up your relationship, period. You'll let it fester until it is all encompassing, period. So by the time you're actually acknowledging it, it's probably pretty irritating. However, again, put it in perspective. And I'm not saying like the person who's going, oh my God, mortgage rates are crazy, I can't sell my house now, I'll never find another place to live. No, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm not saying stay in a bad relationship, because that's not what I'm saying. I am saying, especially if this is something relatively new or still flexible. I mean, it gets to the point where you're in a relationship that you've been in for years and years and years where they're never going to change and you know it for sure. Like, say, your parents or something. You know, they might act like they want to change, but they're never going to change. Okay? This is not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about something that first of all, you need to practice it. So, a newer relationship, okay? Look at it and say, this thing that is so irritating to you, like, I don't know, maybe say they like to call you at 12 o'clock at night and you have to get up at 6 in the morning to go to work or something like that, right? And they're just not thinking. Okay? Now, that is the type of thing. If they did that 4 times a week, then eventually you would be like, I got to have you out of my life because I'm never going to sleep. Fact. Okay? But if they do it, but in reality, that might be just a very small thing compared to the rest of everything else. Like, maybe you really do get along. Maybe it's a really important thing to you to have this person in your life. Maybe they're just really super excited about things. Great. You know, um, it's not malicious. It's not terrible, but it will be like the thorn that you eventually have to have your entire leg amputated with. So really look at it in perspective. There might be just this one really annoying thing that's probably impinging on your time or something. Maybe they show up at your house unannounced and that just drives you crazy and you just need to know, have it scheduled. You know what? You're not the only one. There's a lot of people with busy lives and they need to have it scheduled and they need to know it ahead of time, and dropping in on them is just like, oh my God, people are aware of this. People can adjust to this. And that is the thing to keep in mind. People can adjust. So if that's just the one thing, it's not everything. And that, it might be that you're annoyed with them and you're like, okay, well, this is the thing that will eventually get me to the point where I can cut them out of my life, because that's also really difficult to do. If that's the case, then I'll let it fester until, if this is a person that is not a positive part of your life, then let that annoying thing annoy you to the point where you can cut them out, because you probably already should have cut them out, but you can't because you have avoidant personality disorder. Cool. So that's the next step, is to judge. Is it just this one little thing and you would really actually like this person to be in your life if they weren't doing this one little thing? Or is it the entire relationship really should be scrapped? Is it a relationship where you could still adjust it, or is it something that's so set in stone that you're never going to be able to? Okay, so if you pass both of those questions, the next thing to do is not do something like give an ultimatum like, you can never call me at this point. Okay, that will be your next instinct. That is because it is very black and white and you're like either yes or no, and this is how the world works. This is not how the world works. It is not that black and white. It is not that important. You don't need to die on a hill of some little annoying habit that somebody has. You might feel like it. It's going to take you pushing a boulder up that hill to get them to try to change this little habit. But seriously, you don't need to, for you, it's massive. For them, it's nothing. If you make it massive, they're going to freak out and leave. Okay? So don't do that. Instead of being very blunt and like an ultimatum, what you should do is one way, for example, this thing, you could wait for an opportune moment. Like, for example, if somebody was calling you at midnight and you get up at 6, and the next time they see you, you could either really be tired or just act a little tired, And they'll say, oh, you're really, you're tired. What's up with that? Because they care about you. And you can say, well, yeah, because I get up at 6, sometimes, I just need more sleep than I've been getting. And then the person might just say, oh my goodness, are my calls? Is that some of it? And you can say, well, yeah, maybe a little. I'd actually prefer not getting calls past like 9 at night. It's just, just my schedule. And that will probably be it. That's it. It's done. So you could wait for an opening like that. Or you could, the thing is that there's going to be an instinct for you. You go like, this is an important thing for me. And so you want to sort of make sure the person knows that it's an important thing for you. And you're used to having people in your life that ignore everything. So you have to come in with, an 80-piece marching band blaring massive amount of, sort of warning and noise and everything else to get anybody to even acknowledge that you exist when it comes to saying something about change with anybody else in your family. This is not like the people you have been with your whole life. You don't need to do that. You don't need the fanfare. You can say, hey, that other night, that call that you made, oh my goodness, that was such a funny story, but I was so tired the next day, and actually, and even worse than that, I really wanted to hear what you were saying, but I was like trying to get off the phone because I was tired, and I hated that, and I really wanted to just have a good talk with you and hear everything out, and I feel kind of rude that I cut you off, and it was just the timing of it, and I really wish you would just call a little earlier next time, or even call the next day if it's really late. Done. That's how you do it. That's it. To say it outright like that is probably like so easy and everything else. So this setting a boundary, it's not building a massive, moat around yourself. That's not what it is. And you don't even have to use this the term boundary. Definitely, you don't have to say ultimatum. You don't have to say, I need to set a guideline, I need to set a rule. You don't need to say anything like that. The first step is, acknowledging what's in your life and just saying it to somebody and let them go with it. And at least 90% of the time, the person is going to hear that and respect it. If they're hearing you at all, they're going to hear that and respect it. And if they don't, that's a really good test that that's a person that maybe is not as invested as you think they are or should be. And maybe they are somebody that you should sooner than later ease out of your life. Anyway, all that rambling, all that setup, yap for this simple, because I can't do it. I'm aware of how to do it, but it's like I have to go through all that. So the thing is, all that I was even just coming up with an example, all that going through that stuff, don't do that with the person. Do that with yourself. And boil it down, get sort of like a script in your head of what you're going to say. So cut out all that, I need to talk to you about something, here's an ultimatum, and like hedging and everything else. It might take 45 minutes to get it out if that's the case, in which case the person is either going to be bored, they're going to miss the point entirely, or they're just, going to leave and cut you out and not care a bit of what you're saying. So work it out ahead of time and get it down and distill it to this one little thing, because literally you could say one sentence and that's the boundary, and then they either follow it or they don't. If they follow it, then good, you've got a good person. They probably will. And if they don't, then yeah, it's time to start loosening those strings and letting them go. Anyway, sorry for it being so extremely rambly. If you made it to the end, though, actually, he's good advice, in my opinion. So I'm going to cut this short, and that's hilarious. I'm going to cut this long, and I'll talk to you tomorrow. Bye.